Good morning, everyone. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's springtime in the suburbs, which means we've got a virtual orchestra of lawnmowers running outside on two or three different neighbors' yards. I'm trying to block the noise out a little bit. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, I was reading Sri Nisargadatta this morning. Actually, there were so many things I wanted to share today. Uh, I'm almost tempted to do a half-hour video, but I won't. I'll drag them out. I'm sure I'll be desperate for what to say at some point. But this morning I was reading a question and answer session between Sri Nisargadatta, that sage that lived in Bombay. He was a Gyani, which means he got his knowledge through inquisitiveness, wanting to know what or who in himself wanted to know anything. Who is it in me that's asking questions? What is it in me that wants to know something? What is it in me that is looking at my mind? I'm clearly observing my mind. What in it in me that pays attention to my body, that actually knows about it, takes care about it. And so he came to his realization, and so one of his disciples just simply asks him. He says, "What do you see?" I like the simplicity of that question. There's no pretense in it. Just asking an enlightened person, "What do you see? What's your experience that's different from mine?" And his answer is very enlightening, very helpful. He says, "I see what you too could see, here and now, but for the wrong focus of your attention." So he's telling us that our delusion, our ignorance, is due to our lack of attention or focus of your attention. He says you give no attention to yourself. Your mind is all with things, with people, with ideas, never with yourself. Bring yourself into focus. Become aware of your own existence. The way back to yourself is through refusal and rejection. All you need is to get rid of the tendency to define yourself. All definitions apply to your body only and to its expressions. We discover the self by being earnest, by searching, by inquiring, by questioning daily and hourly, by giving one's life to this discovery. How do you use some information like this? Sometimes philosophy, it comes across as cool, makes sense, I like it, but what do you do with it? He's talking here about really coming into the moment and being aware of what's going on. We accept so many conventions, and we have so many habits and so many automatic routines and so many automatic perspectives that we don't often stop, let it all go, and take stock of just being. He says something very interesting here that we're always paying attention to things and to people and to circumstances, outside things, the things that happen to our body. And interestingly enough, that even when someone asks who we are or what we always go from the outside in. I'm a man, I'm 55, I'm this, that, and the other, I like this, that, and the other. And so what he's telling us to do here is to answer those questions differently. Ask those questions differently. When you have a desire, say like, I want to have a piece of cake. You say, I want to have a piece of cake. What does cake belong to? Who or what is it that's asking for cake? It's a body, right? It's the taste sensation that you want, the sweetness in your mouth, that satisfaction. So you, instead of saying, I want a piece of cake, you should say the body wants cake, right? And then there's the things of the mind. A desire like, gosh, I want to go to a movie. So we tie the I to the desire to go to a movie. But what is it that wants to go to the movie? It's the mind that wants to go to the movie. The mind wants the story, wants the distraction, wants the entertainment. But it's not you. The sages say that there's a third component that manifests as mind, and then mind manifests as body, and then the rest of it is all included in the combination of those two. But in fact, there's a you that sits behind it. And he says that the way to find that self, to know what it is to exist, to know what it is to be, to know the source of love, to know the source of intelligence. There's a stillness in you, a quietness in you that is merely aware, that is aware of being aware. And that self is the true self. That's your true nature. And so to help in overcoming the things that keep the distractions, first, decide what they belong to. They belong to the body, and so talk about them as belonging to the body. They belong to the mind, so talk about them as belonging to the mind. That way you break the identity, the idea that I want, I am, I need, I must have to get. You can break that connection. And that's one of the first helpful steps in being able to control yourself. You know, when I have gone through bouts of depression, when you say, I'm depressed, that's a definition, that's a given. And there's not much you can do about it. You just have to say, oh, God, I'm depressed. But depression belongs to mind. So you say the mind is depressed. Now you have some control because there's a distinction, a separation between the I and the depression. And that distinction gives you power, gives you the ability to decide whether you pay attention to mind or not, gives you the ability to decide whether you suffer according to mind or not. You know, it's very helpful just to say, I'm looking at the world through a depressed mind. So you know that the world is not depressed or depressing. You know that it's being colored by a depressed mind. And so you can let some of that weight off. You have some wiggle room, you know, in there. And then you can come in and use mantra, you can use prayer, you can use the thought of God, you can use devotion, you can use service, you know, you can use all of these things then to counter the refraction of the mind, you know, to get away from the heaviness of it because you haven't identified with it, you haven't made it a given about yourself. And he says that this practice, the way to be successful in this is not to just do it every now and then or even once a day. He says that you should live in a questioning manner. You know, all the time at the beginning. It becomes a natural thing after a while. Then after you learn the lessons, it becomes almost unnecessary because you have found the perspective of the divine within you, that image of the beloved, that image of God. So you see how we're mixing there some jnana and some bhakti, or in English words, discernment. We're mixing the paths of discernment, of knowledge, and the paths of devotion, the paths, toward God. So he says, become aware of your own existence. You know, there is a beautiful thing to that, to take a meditation and just to think how amazing it is to exist. You know, I find that even in times where life is tough, where I am down and I'm stressed out and not catching up with things, I can find that even the fact that I'm able to experience that stress, even the fact that I'm able to have all of these things going on that are heavy and on me, if I take a moment and just separate them for a moment, separate them from myself, go back to the stillness in me that's just watching, that part of me that's just watching the mind and its thoughts, that part of me that's just watching the body and its needs and its feelings and its condition, to sit in that and remind myself to become aware again of how it is amazing to exist at all, to be allowed to exist. Even the bad things have color and have shape and have form and have experience attached to them, you know, wondrous things. But put them in their proper category and experience the self as separate from it, and the self defined by love, defined by being, defined by that intelligence. But put things where they belong. And he says that it's going to take you a lot of earnestness, a lot of constant attention, you know. He says, become aware of your own existence. The way back to yourself is through refusal and rejection. Refusal of what and rejection of what? Of things as defining yourself. You know, to not let your mood define you, to not let your beauty or your ugliness define you, to not let the mind and its moods define you. For the mind to be in a bad mood, you can just say, oh, the mind's in a bad mood, and then you can decide whether you want to play along or not. You see? If you define yourself as having a bad mood, you have no choice. You've already taken on the identity. So he's trying to empower us here to our own realization, empowerment to truth, to knowing the nature of things. So today, as everything's going on, when you feel a desire, Stop. Do some discernment. What does that desire belong to? Does it belong to me? Because if you say it belongs to me, then you have no choice but to obey it. If it belongs to the body, not to me, then I can decide. I can look at it more clearly. What's the effect of it? If I want that piece of cake, you can say, no, I don't want that piece of cake. The body wants that piece of cake. Now, when was the last time I gave the body that piece of cake? Okay, and think about it. And then discriminate. Was it really satisfying? If it was satisfying, why is the body asking for it again? Why wasn't having what it got, what it desired, enough for it? What is the fruit of having that piece of cake? Am I overweight? Am I healthy? Do I have heart problems? Consider the value of that desire. And then you say to the self, and this sounds funny really to someone who may not be practicing it, but it's extremely practical for a spiritual practitioner to be able to make these distinctions inside and say, okay, body, you are asking me for a piece of cake. Look at you. You're 50 pounds overweight. You've got a cholesterol level of 271. Your triglycerides are over 500. Really? Is that really what I want? Now, the body may want it. I don't want it. And I'm in charge of the body. The body is my disciple, and I have to take care of it. So you empower yourself like that, and you say no to the cake. But you say yes to good health. You say yes to weight loss. You say yes to longevity. So be aware. Don't be a passenger, in the world, just identifying yourself with everything, just having one eye that wants and wants and wants and wants, and really becomes just a form of parasite that just sits there eating for its own pleasures anything that it touches. Become what you are. Become a person. Become a manifestation of the highest ideals that are your joy, that are your highest best interest, that are your happiness, that are your glory. Pay attention to those today. Don't let things come to you automatically today. Don't slip into that robotic mode of existence, but discern and ask and try to touch your divine nature personally and in a real and meaningful way today.